The most dangerous person in your life isn't the one who hates you out loud. It's the one who hugs you after the win and then hopes it's your last. Because hate you can see coming, but fake support? It looks like encouragement. It feels like loyalty. It sounds like love. Until you realize your fire keeps dimming around the same people who keep lighting candles in your name. They smile when you tell them your dreams, but there's a twitch in the corner of their eye. They repost your achievements, but never without a little comment like, "Took long enough," or "Hope it's not just luck." They show up to clap, but never to build. And little by little you start questioning. Am I really this good? Or am I just getting ahead of myself? That doubt? It wasn't yours. Someone gifted it to you, with a grin. In this video, we're not talking about enemies. We're talking about the friends who slow clap your downfall. The colleagues who say you're killing it, but disappear when you ask for real support. The family member who prays for your success but reminds you not to get too cocky. This isn't opposition. This is slow erosion. And it's more dangerous than open hate, because it hides inside people you want to believe. Stoicism teaches us to recognize what is real, not what is comfortable. Marcus Aurelius warned, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." And fake support keeps you half alive, working, doubting, questioning, pleasing. Always shrinking just enough to stay accepted by people who secretly liked you better when you were still small. This video will help you spot the signs. Not to burn bridges, but to stop letting termites live in your foundation, because your life cannot be built on polite sabotage. Like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic, where we don't beg for applause, we build in silence and let results speak louder than praise. In the comments, share your story, or claim your line in the sand with this phrase, "No applause, just progress." Let's begin. Because not all poison is poured in your cup, some of it is hidden in the toast. Number 1. They only support you when you're still below them. There's a type of person who will cheer for you until you get a little too confident, too successful, too free. As long as you're struggling, they're present. As long as you're doubting yourself, they're supportive. But the moment you begin to rise, to believe in yourself without their validation, to surpass their silent ceiling, they vanish. Or worse, they stay close just long enough to make you question if you're rising too fast. They only support you as long as you don't outgrow them. And it's not always obvious. These aren't villains. They're often people who were there for you in the early days. Friends who helped you through rough nights. Family who believed in your talent, but only within limits they could emotionally tolerate. When you were unsure, they were generous. When you were humble, they were warm. But when you started walking without asking for directions, they became uncomfortable. Not outwardly. They still say the right things, but the tone shifted, and the silence between compliments grew longer. This is the curse of conditional support. It creates an invisible ceiling where your value is only embraced as long as it doesn't challenge theirs. Kevin, 40, a freelance designer from Chicago, had a close-knit group of friends he'd grown up with. For years, they bonded over shared struggles, dead-end jobs, bad dates, half-baked business ideas. But when Kevin finally landed a contract with a major tech company and moved into a better neighborhood, something shifted. The group chat got quiet. Jokes about selling out started popping up. When he mentioned traveling to Portugal for work, someone texted, "Must be nice to have corporate money now." They still met up, but Kevin wasn't celebrated anymore. He was tolerated, resented even. The message was clear: we liked you more when you were one of us. Psychologists call this dynamic status equilibrium. According to social identity theory, many people form group bonds based on shared levels of struggle or identity. When one person disrupts that balance, by rising, healing, succeeding, it threatens the group's cohesion. They feel betrayed, even if nothing hostile was done. Why? Because your success doesn't just highlight your growth, it highlights their stagnation. And that stings. The Stoics warned us about this. Epictetus wrote, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." But in modern life, it's not just strangers who'll think you foolish. It's friends who once applauded you. Because when you rise beyond their mental image of you, you force them to reevaluate their own choices. Some would rather shrink you than confront themselves. That's why many people unconsciously support your pain more than your progress. It keeps things familiar. It keeps you familiar. So how do you deal with this? First, stop confusing proximity with loyalty. Just because someone has known you the longest doesn't mean they want the best for you now. Loyalty that depends on your limitation is not loyalty, it's emotional control. Second, don't try to explain your evolution to people committed to misunderstanding it. The more you justify your growth, the more you invite them to debate its legitimacy. Let your consistency speak louder than their insecurity. Third, build new circles without guilt. This doesn't mean cutting people off in anger. It means expanding your environment to include those who don't flinch when you shine. People who don't need you to be small in order to feel big. Fourth, track patterns, not words. Do they still show up? Do they share your work? Celebrate your wins without sarcasm? Or do they constantly remind you who you used to be? When someone can't let go of your old story, it's often because your new one makes them feel erased. Fifth, anchor your progress internally. Meditate, journal, create your own metrics of fulfillment that no one else can measure or manipulate. The Stoics believed in cultivating the inner citadel, a fortress within that no praise can inflate, no silence can shake. And finally, accept the grief that comes with growth. Because rising doesn't just cost you comfort zones, it costs you people. People who meant well, people who helped you once, but people who now, perhaps unknowingly, want you boxed, muted, just a little below them. Let them go. Let them misunderstand. Let them whisper. Because when you start honoring your calling more than your comfort, you will outgrow more than bad habits. You will outgrow entire rooms. And that's not betrayal, that's evolution. Number 2, I support you, but be careful. The gospel of dream-smothering delivered with a smile. Nothing kills ambition faster than a reasonable voice whispering, just be careful. Not because caution is bad, but because in this case, it's not caution. It's camouflaged fear, dressed in concern, soaked in insecurity, and sprayed with a fresh bottle of unsolicited life advice. You thought they were handing you a compass. Turns out it's an ankle weight. You say, I'm thinking of starting my own business. They say, that's great, but you know, 90% of businesses fail, right? You say, I might quit this soul-sucking job and go back to school. They say, sure, just don't expect it to be easy like in the movies. You say, I finally feel ready to publish my book. They nod, pause, and say, just don't get your hopes up, okay? What a service. What a gift. Imagine if history's great minds had access to these self-appointed prophets of protective pessimism. Michelangelo, maybe don't paint the ceiling, it's risky. Amelia Earhart, sweetie, planes are loud and boys won't like you. Dr. King, your dreams are admirable, but let's be realistic about change. You see, these people are not trying to help you. They're trying to slow you down just enough that they don't have to speed up, because your flame reminds them how dim their own fire has gotten. And rather than reignite themselves, it's easier to tell you to lower the brightness. They're not villains. They're villagers, afraid of what happens when someone leaves the gate. And their favorite disguise? Logic. They don't say, I don't want you to succeed. They say, I just don't want you to get hurt. They don't say, your growth scares me. They say, this path is unpredictable. Just think it through. They don't say, your courage exposes my apathy. They say, timing is everything. In psychology, this behavior maps onto internalized limitation projection, a lovely term for, I didn't chase my dream, so let me explain why you shouldn't either. And they truly believe it's kindness, because in their minds, comfort is safety and risk is recklessness. And if you succeed where they hesitated, it creates a discomfort they can't name. So they do the next best thing, make you doubt yourself. Gently, respectfully, constantly. The Stoic response? Laugh internally, smile externally, move anyway. As Seneca said, it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult. The be careful crowd never dared. They're just passing the torch of fear, hoping you'll carry it far enough to forget it isn't yours. So how do you handle these dream-suffocating sages? 1. Don't debate them. That gives their fear more air. Just nod and say, thanks for looking out, then walk right past their invisible boundary line. 2. Document your wins. Every time you act despite their warnings, write it down. You'll build a portfolio of evidence that you don't need permission to progress. 3. Match concern with clarity. When they say it's risky, reply with, "That's exactly why I'm doing it." Let risk be your compass, not your excuse. 4. Protect your momentum. Don't share your every move with people who only validate you when you're still stuck. Let your results speak where their words stall. 5. Remember, no one ever built a legacy by playing small enough to be palatable. The ones who tell you to be careful will one day tell others, "I always knew they'd make it." So thank them, quietly, and keep going. Because their reasonable warning isn't about your path, it's about their fence line. And if you're hearing it, it means you're close to crossing something they were too scared to approach. Cross it anyway. Burn brighter, let their squints adjust, or not. You aren't made for their comfort. You were made for movement. Number 3, they drag your past so you don't step into your future. They don't have to stop you. All they have to do is remind you who you were when you still doubted yourself. And they do it with surgical precision, always at the moment when you're closest to taking a leap forward. You mention a new goal, they bring up the old version of you. You share your plan to try again, they tilt their head and say, "Wasn't this like that last time it didn't work out?" You feel momentum building, and they quietly roll out the reel of your past stumbles, like a highlight film of your worst scenes. It's not hate, it's not even criticism, it's control. Not loud, not violent, but insidious. These people don't hate your progress. They hate what your progress says about your past. Because if you grow, it means those old failures weren't final. And if they're not final, then maybe they were wrong to define you by them. But rather than update their view, they try to anchor you to the version of yourself that felt safe for them. And so they bring up the missed job interview from 3 years ago. The business you launched that didn't last. The time you said you'd do something and didn't follow through. They don't do it to analyze. They do it to reduce you, to shrink you back into a space that doesn't threaten their own stillness. Because here's what no one wants to admit. Growth is a confrontation, not just with your own limitations, but with the comfort zones of the people around you. When you evolve, when you shed old habits, old identities, old fears, some people don't see a butterfly, they see betrayal. Why? Because your change forces a silent question inside them. Why haven't I changed too? So rather than rise with you, they reach back and drag your history into your current momentum, like a wet anchor clanging behind a racing ship. Not to destroy you, just to slow you down, just enough that they don't have to catch up. And they'll say it's love. They'll say, "I'm just keeping you grounded." They'll say, "You don't want to repeat what happened last time." They'll say, "I remember when you were more humble." But none of this is about memory. It's about keeping the hierarchy familiar, when they knew where to place you, when your losses made them feel secure, when your setbacks gave them something to pity. Because pity never asks you to improve. It only asks you to sit still. The Stoic doesn't sit in old stories. They study them, they learn, and then they leave. Epictetus wrote, "It is not events that disturb us, but our judgment about them." So ask yourself, whose judgment am I still internalizing? Whose memory of your past has become the limit of your present? It's one thing to be aware of your failures. It's another to let people use them as leashes. Jordan, 29, from Denver, had spent years battling addiction and finally found stability through therapy, fitness, and building his own landscaping business. But every time he spoke of expanding, his cousin would chuckle and say, "Just don't forget who you were, man. Remember the old Jordan who couldn't keep a job?" That wasn't brotherly love, that was emotional anchoring. It said, "Don't fly too far, I'm more comfortable when you crawl." Jordan didn't argue, he stopped explaining. He got quieter about his progress, not to hide it, but to protect it. Some journeys don't need commentary from the peanut gallery. They need clarity, solitude, and forward motion. So if you've heard these echoes lately, these friendly reminders of who you once were, pause. Don't fight, don't plead, just check the source. Are they really trying to help you grow, or are they just afraid of being left behind? Because your past is a classroom, not a prison. And you don't owe anyone an apology for graduating. The truth? Some people aren't haunted by your failures. They're haunted by the idea that those failures didn't define you, that you had the audacity to evolve, that you didn't stay small, bitter, safe, that you stood back up and kept going. They'll keep mentioning the past not because you forgot it, but because they need you to relive it. Don't. Smile, nod, and walk forward with both hands free. You've got a future to build. Let them sit in the reruns. Number 4. They praise you in private, then disappear when the knives come out. They love you when no one else is watching. They speak well of you at the dinner table, send the clapping emoji on your post, and tell you you're doing amazing, really. But that moment someone else steps into the room with criticism, judgment, or subtle sabotage, they fall completely silent. No defense, no objection, no presence. And yet, they'll message you later with a gentle, "That was uncomfortable. Are you okay?" The damage is already done, but they make sure to clean up their conscience, not your wounds. This is the most dangerous kind of support, the kind that disappears exactly when you need it. It's not betrayal in the classic sense. It's not slander, it's not backstabbing, it's absence. It's the quiet turning of the head while someone else throws you under the bus. And it's always justified with something polite. "I didn't want to get involved," or "I didn't want to escalate it," or the classic, "It wasn't my place." But here's what they'll never say out loud. "I didn't want to risk losing my social position by standing next to you." You were safe to admire. You were safe to praise until it cost them something. Because fake support isn't about who loves you. It's about who's willing to be seen loving you when it's unpopular. Real loyalty doesn't go quiet when the crowd grows loud. This plays out constantly, in workplaces, families, social circles. Anya, 34, a public school teacher in Seattle, led a project to reform how students with learning challenges were treated. Her colleagues celebrated her in private. "You're doing important work. We're proud of you." But when a group of administrators began publicly criticizing her methods without evidence, those same colleagues didn't say a word. They kept their heads down. They didn't join the attacks, but they didn't interrupt them either. Anya didn't need them to be warriors. She just needed one person to say, "She's not alone." No one did. That silence? That wasn't neutrality. That was alignment, by omission. Psychologists call this bystander effect, where people assume someone else will speak up, or fear that if they do, they'll be targeted too. It's human, it's predictable, but it's also a mirror. When push comes to shove, who do they protect? Themselves or the truth? The Stoic doesn't crave approval, but they do track integrity. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But silence in the face of falsehood? That's worse than a lie. It allows the falsehood to grow legs and walk around unchallenged. So how do you handle these quiet defectors? You don't beg them to speak. You don't call them out in public. You watch, you remember, and you reassign roles in your life accordingly. Not everyone who claps deserves front row seats. Some people are there for your sunshine, not your storms. And the moment clouds gather, they scatter until it's clear again. Then they return like nothing happened, with a smile and a compliment. Don't hate them, don't fight them. Just stop trusting their volume and silence. True support doesn't just whisper, "You've got this." It stands beside you when someone shouts, "You don't," because silence in the face of injustice isn't noble. It's cowardice rebranded as neutrality. So when the next storm comes, and it always does, look around. Who's there? Who stays? Who speaks? That's your real circle. Everyone else is just background noise, waiting for a safer scene. Number 5. They cheer for you, but never share the mic. They clap, they smile, they say, "You're amazing, I'm so proud of you," but somehow they never repost your work, never mention your name in rooms you're not in, never refer clients, never tag you, never say, "Hey, I know someone who can help." Their support is all noise, no lift. This is the praise that cost them nothing, and that's exactly how much they're willing to give. They don't criticize you, they don't tear you down, but they never help you build either. Because helping you rise would mean co-signing your visibility. And for people who measure their self-worth in relative status, your visibility feels like their eclipse. They say they believe in you, but what they really mean is "I like watching you work hard, as long as the spotlight never leaves me." So they stay just supportive enough to look kind, but not invested enough to make your name echo beyond the room. That's not loyalty. That's performative encouragement. Michael, 42, a photographer in Dallas, had a friend, Alex, who constantly praised his work. "Bro, your eye is insane. This shot belongs in a gallery." But when Alex got invited to curate a local art event, he didn't mention Michael once, didn't forward the invite, didn't bring him up, even when the organizers said they were looking for local creatives. When Michael asked why, Alex said, "Oh man, I didn't think you'd want something that small." That's how fake support sounds, plausible lies wrapped in concern. The truth? Alex didn't want Michael in the room, because then Michael would shine, and Alex wouldn't be the only one with access anymore. In psychology, this is a mix of covert competition and resource guarding, behaviors where people avoid directly undermining you, but still withhold the bridges that would help you rise. They don't hate you, they just quietly ensure you stay in place. The Stoic doesn't measure friendships by words, but by alignment of action and intention. Epictetus reminds us, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. In the same way, don't explain your support, demonstrate it. Because in the end, anyone can say, "You're brilliant." But who invites you into the room? Who holds the door open and says, "Meet this person, they're the real deal"? Those are allies. The others? They're emotional spectators who cheer with one hand while hiding the mic with the other. So what do? You take note. You stop mistaking flattery for fuel. You start building with people whose actions stretch beyond sentiment. You match depth with depth and surface with space. And most of all, you don't beg for referrals. You don't audition for shares. You don't chase inclusion. You build so clearly that those who won't say your name in public start to feel left out. Because real support shows up in places where it costs something, where their credibility is on the line, where the spotlight has to widen to fit both of you. So if they're not willing to speak your name outside your presence, don't let their compliments echo too loudly inside your heart. They're not keeping you grounded, they're keeping you contained. Number 6, they pretend to listen so they can talk about themselves. They nod, they make eye contact. They even say things like, "That's crazy," or "Wow, tell me more." But you know it, you feel it. They're not actually hearing you, they're stalling, biding time until the spotlight swings back where they want it, on them. You're not having a conversation, you're holding a mirror. One that makes them feel centered, interesting, wise. You could be pouring your heart out, sharing a hard win, grieving a loss, and they'll find a way to pivot. You say, "I've been feeling anxious about this next step." They reply, "Yeah, I went through that last year when I was juggling 2 promotions and starting that nonprofit." Suddenly, your moment becomes their monologue. Your voice becomes their launch pad. This isn't narcissism in the clinical sense. It's something subtler, more common, and just as corrosive. What psychologists call conversational hijacking. It's when someone uses your vulnerability as a stage for their own ego. They're not malicious, just profoundly self-centered. They don't ask follow-ups unless those questions give them a way back to their own narrative. They don't offer space, they offer comparison. They don't hold silence, they rush to fill it with relevance to themselves. Claire, 36, a health coach from Phoenix, experienced this in every call with her childhood friend Lila. Claire would open up about her burnout, her fears, the exhaustion of helping clients through emotional eating while barely sleeping herself. Lila would nod, then say, "That reminds me, I've been so overwhelmed managing my podcast interviews lately. And did I tell you who DM'd me last week?" By the end of the call, Claire wasn't supported. She was drained. Not because Lila attacked her, but because Lila turned Claire's truth into set dressing for her own script. This is the weapon of the faux listener. They use your story to transition into theirs. Stoicism teaches the opposite. It teaches presence, stillness. Seneca wrote, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we may listen more and talk less." But that discipline is rare in a world where conversations are no longer exchanges, they're stages, and everyone's auditioning. So how do you protect yourself from these subtle hijackers? First, stop rewarding performance with intimacy. If someone constantly redirects, stop confiding, give them less. Let their spotlight shrink without your energy feeding it. Second, test the conversation. Say something real, watch what they do with it. Do they dig deeper or deflect and divert? Third, track how you feel after talking to them. Uplifted, grounded, or hollow, unheard, quietly irrelevant. Because the danger here isn't just that they don't hear you, it's that you slowly forget that your voice matters too. You become the listener, the audience, the applause machine, and eventually you shrink your own stories just to make space for theirs. That's not friendship. That's emotional utility. That's performance support. You deserve conversations that breathe, that circle back, that say, tell me more, and mean it. You deserve to be heard without being turned into someone's segue. So next time someone nods too fast, responds too eagerly, or pivots too sharply, pause, smile, and redirect your energy where it will be met, not mined. You are not a stage. You are not a transition. You are a voice that deserves a full moment in the room. Number 7. They can't celebrate you without undermining you. You win and they flinch. Just a little. Not enough for most people to notice. But you do. You always do. They say the words, congrats, that's huge. But there's a pause, a shift, a subtle tilt of the tone, and then it comes. You really lucked out. Right place, right time. That industry's hot right now. Anyone could have made it. What looks like support is actually sabotage, dipped in politeness. Because they can't quite say they're proud of you without also suggesting that you didn't fully earn it. Because deep down, your success without their help feels like a betrayal of the unspoken script. You can grow, but only as long as I get to be part of the reason. You've met this person. We all have. They don't attack you. They don't challenge your abilities directly. That would expose their insecurity. Instead, they insert just enough shadow to dim your spotlight without turning off the lights completely. That way, they still look like a supporter, but you walk away questioning whether you really did something remarkable. This is emotional micromanagement. Not I'm happy for you, but I'm happy-ish as long as you remember not to outgrow my comfort. It's not about the win. It's about the implication of the win. You succeeded. You rose, you moved, and you did it without their advice, their permission, their approval. And that is the insult they cannot name. Psychologists call this covert invalidation, a way people regulate their own sense of worth by poking holes in yours, subtly enough that you feel it, but can't quite call it out. Because it's just a joke, because they were just being real. Because you're too sensitive? No, you're not too sensitive. You're too aware. And that awareness threatens them. Tyler, 31, a videographer in Brooklyn, finally landed a client that took his freelance career to the next level. His longtime friend, Josh, sent a message. Wow, bro, impressive. Guess it pays to know the right people, huh? Tyler didn't know what to say. Yes, he had connections, but he also had late nights, rejections, unpaid gigs, thousands of hours of learning, building, failing, repeating. But somehow, Josh reduced it all to luck. That's how fake support works. It reduces your effort to external factors. It preserves their ego by deleting your agency, because the moment they acknowledge your grind, they have to confront their own stagnation. And most people aren't ready to do that. The Stoic approach: you don't demand validation. You don't beg them to see the full picture. You simply stop accepting commentary from those who haven't earned a seat in your process. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Apply that to respect. Those who cannot give full praise reveal their poverty of spirit. So what do? You say thank you once? You take the compliment, you leave the poison. You don't explain, don't defend, don't clarify the hard work behind the win. You know, that's enough. You build in public, but you validate in private. You keep moving. Because real support sounds like, I saw what you did, you earned it, well done. And if they can't give you that, they're not a supporter. They're a spectator hoping you trip before the next lap. Let them watch. You don't need their full belief to keep becoming. Number 8, they only show up when you're down, because that's where they feel tall success. They vanish. You announce a win, hit a milestone, land a big opportunity, they go silent. Maybe a week, maybe nothing. No call, no message, no presence. But fail, fall, flinch even slightly, suddenly they're there, fully available, full of empathy, full of advice. They love you most when you're hurting, because that's when they feel helpful, needed, relevant. That's when they become the strong one. You've seen this before. When you post a photo from your vacation, they scroll past. When you lose your job, they send 3 paragraphs and an offer to talk. When you win an award, crickets. When you admit you're struggling, they drop everything. This isn't compassion, it's emotional opportunism. They don't want you broken because they hate you. They want you broken because that's the only version of you they can feel superior to. When you rise, you become unreachable. When you shine, you don't need them. But when you fall, they get to play the role they've rehearsed. The comforter, the wise one, the rescuer. And if you heal too fast, if you bounce back stronger, they'll subtly slow it down. Don't rush yourself. It's okay to feel like a failure for a while. Take your time rebuilding. You're not ready yet. Read between the lines. Stay low. It's where I can still reach you. Andrea, 37, a fashion stylist in Los Angeles, noticed this pattern with her older sister. When Andrea struggled financially, her sister was there constantly, checking in, sending resources, even offering money. But when Andrea started landing celebrity clients, getting invited to shoots in Paris, something shifted. The check-ins stopped. The enthusiasm dimmed. And when Andrea posted a behind-the-scenes photo with a major designer, her sister's only comment was, "Must be exhausting to keep up with that world." That wasn't support. That was resentment in a silk glove. Her sister needed Andrea to stay dependent so she could keep feeling strong. And the moment Andrea didn't need her, she didn't interest her. This dynamic is rooted in what psychologists call self-enhancement through comparison. The supporter doesn't want mutual growth. They want to remain the one above. They don't say, "I hope you rise." They say, "I hope you fall just enough that I can feel useful again." It's not love. It's ego feeding dressed up as compassion. The Stoic doesn't reject help, but they recognize the intention behind the hand that reaches out. Seneca wrote, "You want to live happily? Live hidden." And sometimes your highest power move is to heal quietly, rise silently, and not invite everyone back in just because they showed up when you were weak. So what do? You don't push them away with rage. That feeds the drama they're waiting for. You simply stop giving them access to the broken version of you they're addicted to. You recover out of reach, you rebuild without performance, you rise without narration. Because the people who only clap when you fall don't want your healing. They want your dependence. And the most threatening version of you to them is the one who no longer needs their pity to breathe. Let them miss that version. You've outgrown it anyway. Conclusion: polite sabotage is still sabotage, just dressed better. Enemies are easy. They boo when you rise. They criticize you clearly. You can see them, mark them, move around them. But fake supporters? They're the ones standing next to you, clapping just loud enough to be noticed, but never loud enough to lift you. They wear smiles like uniforms. They hug you while hiding a leash behind their back. They don't yell, "You'll never make it." They whisper, "Just don't change too much." They don't block your path. They slow your stride with caution, concern, compliments that come with a leash. And you, trained to be polite, to avoid conflict, to give benefit of the doubt, mistake it for loyalty. But it isn't. It's fear management, status preservation, quiet control. The Stoics would not be fooled. They didn't measure relationships by words, but by freedom. Marcus Aurelius would walk among senators, soldiers, and flatterers, and still return to his journal, reminding himself, receive without pride, let go without attachment. And that's your answer. You don't need to expose them. You need to outgrow them. Let them call you cold when you stop sharing every plan. Let them say you've changed when you stop performing humility for people who fear your power. Let them think you're arrogant when you stop apologizing for wanting more than survival. Because your career, your vision, your inner peace, they're not collective projects. They weren't born from a vote. They don't need a round of applause to be real. And they sure as hell don't need to be explained to people who only clap when your light is dim enough not to hurt their eyes. Victory Stoic is not about revenge. It's about clarity. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right, quietly, repeatedly, on your own terms. So take inventory. Who disappears when you shine? Who shows up when you're hurting, but never when you're expanding? Who listens only to redirect the attention back to themselves? You don't need to confront them, just cut the volume. Let their praise stay behind the glass. Let your steps echo louder than their approval. You're not here for performance applause. You're here for inner alignment and unshakable momentum. Like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic if you're done waiting for permission. In the comments, drop your story or anchor your next move with this line: no applause, just progress. Thanks for walking this path with us. Now keep walking, and let the fake claps fade behind you.